City, and I'm here with my friend, the Devotee from Australia, Robert Godden. Hi, Robert.
Hello.
How are you?
Very, very good.
We're actually about to sample some tea that I got from World Tea Expo. We just came from Vegas.
We did, and it was quite an experience.
It was quite nice. Was this your first time here?
Yeah, we came over specifically to start there, so we just sort of arrived just before the expo, and it was really our first experience of both Tea Expo and America.
Well, it was my first time at the expo as well, so. And this is my first time making black tea from Taiwan. So you'll have to be gracious with my brewing skills, but because it looks like it's long, I assume that I need to let the leaf open up a bit.
I would think so too.
So I'm going to do that. Just going to let that for a few more seconds, and then I'm going to pour it into an obscure cup around here. We're going to brew that right on up. Okay, well, in any event, I just wanted to have a quick conversation with the Devotee. Do you prefer the Devotee or?
Well, the Devotee is how we say it in Australia, but everyone has a different accent and a different way of saying
the Devotee, right? Like devoted.
With attitude.
The Devotee.
That's it.
You have to add the attitude. The attitude is very important.
Very important. I remember I found out about you through our mutual friend, A Gift of Tea, Joe, and she's amazing. She's such a wonderful mentor to me. And last year, her white tea, you visited us via Skype, or was it Google Hangouts?
It was Google Hangouts. It was a bit unusual because it was on a very small screen, so you got a sort of sense, a bit of a sense of the event, but it didn't really take it all in.
But I remember having
He's a keeper.
The Lord, how do I say it?
Lord Petersham?
Peterson.
Yep.
Did I say it right?
Petersham.
Peterson.
Yep.
Delicious black tea.
Yeah, it's working very well for us in America. Lord Petersham, it really seems to have captured the palate here. So it's just, of all our teas, it's the one that people talk about and share and enjoy and buy.
Any tips for me in brewing this? It looks like it needs to steep for a while.
Yeah, it's a very oolong looking black, isn't it? Yeah. I think it needs a bit of time to develop.
We need a bit of time, right? So we're going to just let that sit, and we're going to continue to talk. So what makes that blend so special? Because sometimes the black tea it's that astringency, and sometimes it's too bitter. And I know you're like a master blender.
Yeah, it's and incidentally, Master Blender was a title conferred on me by our web developer, so it doesn't have a great deal of authority behind it, but it seems to, again, it's captured people's imagination, so we go with it. The thing with Lord Petersham is it's different in different markets, and because tea is different in different markets, and in America it seems to sit above the average strength and above the average level of sort of maltiness. So here it's most definitely sort of a tea that you start at breakfast and keep on going and drink all day. And I think that's where it sits here in Australia, where we've got 7 black teas. It's kind of in the middle of our range, but here in America it seems to be just in that, just over the middle. And I think that's what appeals to people. They don't want to go too far from what they like, a nice black tea, but it just gives them a little bit of a boost, a little bit maltiness, a little bit of strength. On top of that, there's a bit of sort of story about the person who was Lord Petersham and why we've chosen to name a tea after him, and because we publicise that story quite widely on our blog and things, I think people like the romance and the history of it as well. So
he drank a lot of tea in one day.
Yeah, he had 365 tea tins, one for every day of the year, and because we created the tea with 7 teas, one for every day of the week, because you couldn't put 365 teas in a blend, not sensibly. So we thought, it's not too big a leap to sort of go from 1 a day for a week as to 1 a day for a year. So that was why we named it after him. And then he was quite an interesting character, and his sister Anna Russell, the Duchess of Bedford, is credited with inventing afternoon tea. And even though that story is possibly not 100% accurate, they're a very tea-related family. So we've actually got teas named after both of them. We have one called the Duchess on our Australian and our English site that is named after Anna Russell.
So what got you into tea? People ask me that all the time. I always tell them that the leaf found me. I didn't find the leaf.
Yeah, as a kid, I used to. My mother drank tea,
Yes.
Always. unusually for Australia, she drank a black, but sweetened. But I drank milk until 5 years ago. And I used to love the Twinings coloured tea bags, all the different flavours. And I used to, as a kid, spend my pocket money on those tea bags. And then when I met Anne, she comes from a tea drinking family, being English, and we've just always drunk tea. And over the years, we just started getting sort of better and better, in our palates. And the more time you spend searching and finding the teas like that, the more interesting you find the whole thing. And we really just, at one point, just got sort of sucked into the tea world.
I know. It kind of takes over, doesn't it? It's like almost like you can't do anything about it. It kind of grabs you. What do you think?
I think we should give it a go.
You think we should give it a go? Okay. So I'm gonna pour. Actually, I'm not very. I'm not an expert at this. But I'm gonna pour. Okay, there's one. Ooh, wee. I'm going to that one. Ooh. Very delicate color. It's a high mountain black tea from Taiwan. I happen to be a oolong fan. I love oolongs.
I rather suspect you're going to like this by the smell of it.
But I remember sampling this at the expo. Look, this was even darker than that one. I want you to have that one. Probably will have more flavor. Okay, and I'm going to give this one to our guests. So, cheers.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Oh, it's nice. It's very nice.
That's what we're doing for 5 years.
It's like a black tea and oolong sort of overlaid, isn't it? With like a...
But you can definitely tell that it's not just a pure oolong.
No, but it's almost like a blend of the two, but it's got like it's got a third layer on it, which is almost a woody or biscuity. There's woody, I think woody.
It's soft.
It's very
soft, silky feeling.
Very, very
in your
soft.
mouth.
Very soft.
Love that. That's very nice. I'm gonna pour some more. So, in any event, what do you think about the tea culture? This is your first time in America.
Yes, it is.
What do you think of the tea culture here, or lack thereof, as compared to tea culture at home?
Well, there wasn't a lot of tea culture in Vegas, which is our first stop, but New York's been a very different experience. I think, like in Australia, you have to choose the places that you go,
Right.
because there's a variety of care, and it's only with care that you can provide good tea, and it's a combination of caring about the tea and also caring about the environment that you serve it in. And we've actually found a place that cared a lot about the environment, but the tea wasn't so great. So they made a really beautiful tea shop, and the tea wasn't flash. But we found other places that have been very, very simple, a counter and some shelves and just a nice selection of teas, and they've been fantastic. One thing we have found in America is the concept of a scone in America is entirely different to what it is in Australia.
Please tell.
In Australia it's a very fluffy, light and not crumbly. And in America we find when you try to cut them, and pretty well everywhere that we've been, when you try to cut them you get a crumbling effect, and they're more...
So is it more like a biscuit?
Yeah.
Our biscuit is
What the conclusion we've come to is that it would be closer to swap them. What we call a scone is closer to what you call a biscuit, and vice versa.
Got it.
Yeah, it's not a perfect comparison, but it's closer.
It's close as we can get. One of the things that I think that's unique about tea culture in America, or lack thereof, because as you know, we've been inundated by coffee culture forever. Actually, the motto of my company is to make fine tea and tea culture commonplace in a coffee-driven society. So everything I do is geared toward promoting tea culture. And I think Robert Pratt said something to the effect of, because we don't necessarily have a solidified tea culture here, we're able to take from the different cultures from around the world and create something really unique and fabulous. And I think that that's That's a great thing. I also had this idea, kind of a light bulb went off this couple of days ago. What if we, I don't know if you noticed this in Australia or anything like that, but what if we can get to the point where, you know how tea and wine are like parallel lives and existence?
They do.
What if we can get to the point where you can go into an establishment and actually be able to choose tea, say different tea companies within one venue. Like you can have different wines.
Yeah.
So you can have like really different selections
Yeah,
of teas that are sourced from different.
You don't just see that. You
don't
really
see
don't.
that.
Whereas a
I
bottle
see-
shop will happily have a stack of
I
wines.
kind of see that
Yeah.
maybe in the future that may be kind of cool.
It may well be, and I mean, if you go into a supermarket, that's what they have, but
That's
it's all
true.
bad tea. So we've already got that concept, yeah. So just an upscale boutique that actually has a multiplicity, and where that would be beneficial to the smaller providers is, as a smaller provider, you don't necessarily have the range that a specialist tea shop needs. Because
Right.
if you're going to be a specialist tea shop and have 40 varieties,
Right.
then it means you could really only have a supplier that's got 40 varieties, whereas under that model you could have 5 or 6 suppliers that, and just take selected teas from each. I think that's a reasonable model. The biggest problem is, of course, just inculcating that tea. A great parallel in Australia is the city of Melbourne. It's a company called T2 that are quite like Tivana, and that'd be a good parallel. Tivana in America. And what they've done in their hometown, which is Melbourne, is to actually just sell the hell out of loose leaf tea. And so if you walk into a place and they don't have loose leaf tea, you can probably go next door. And while it's certainly not a favoured tea or a preferred tea, it is loose leaf. And if I've got the choice between shop A and shop B, and they have infiltrated to such a point where loose leaf is, you would expect it as much as you would not expect it. And when you get to that point, I think that's when your tea culture can really take off, because no one is going to go out and choose a supermarket tea bag over an espresso latte. Why would you choose the worst tea you can buy when for the same price you can have a good coffee?
Right. Well, I'm a bit of a tea snob. I don't know about you, so I don't really indulge in the coffee game. You consider yourself a tea snob?
No.
Have you ever been called a tea snob?
I've been called a tea snob. I'm not a tea snob because I would rather have a 4-star tea and a nice piece of cake and 3 good friends than a 5-star tea by myself.
Well, I think that you can still be a tea snob and do the former. I don't think of it as necessarily a negative thing. I kind of wear that badge, proudly or whatnot.
Yeah, look, and I think you can, and we have. We've evolved the way we deal with buying tea when we're out, and when I say we've evolved, I hate you to think it was my idea, because really not. So what used to happen was I would go into a tea shop, invariably with my wife and business partner Anne, who's sitting carefully off camera here,
Yes.
and I would go in and I'd say, now I'd like some tea. Now let me talk to you about my tea and how good it has to be.
Yes.
And Anne would often get somewhat embarrassed because I would carry on. And she actually developed this technique of jumping ahead of me and saying, now look, before we talk to you about this tea, let me explain. And so I don't really have to say anything now. And
She takes care of it.
And she carefully explains it, and probably goes further than I would, because I always felt bad about it. So I would go, well, you see, and that's not really, and I didn't make a lot of sense. Whereas Anne just come in and say, look, we're tea merchants and we only drink good tea, so we're going to ask you if your tea's any good, and if it's not, we're going to have coffee. And it's a very direct thing, and I think that's helped us a lot. Because I always find, for example, when we had this poor tea at the other side of Central Park the other day, had they asked me, I would have told them, not only do I think it's not really good, but I think you made it very badly as well. They didn't ask. And I would never be rude enough to volunteer that.
Right.
But I'm staggered they didn't ask. And I suspect the fact that they don't ask is why they don't know.
Right. That's indicative of the tea culture here.
Yeah,
or lack thereof.
and the tea that was provided to me was one that it was a chai, and it could have been made black and it would have been quite nice, and it could have been made with a lot of milk and it would have been quite nice. What you couldn't do with it was what they did, which was make it black and put a splash of milk in it. That was never going to work for a chai. You know,
Right.
it had to be black or really, really milky masala chai style. So I was, and I had carefully figured out how to phrase that, but they never at any point said, "Did you enjoy your tea?" So, and I think that
more of that.
you need more of that.
Customer
The
service when it
places
comes
that improve are the places that ask. But then you can walk into a little tiny cake shop or whatever, and they've got 3 teas, but they're all excellent, and they care about them and they make them properly. And you go, well, that's what you want. You don't have to offer me 70 teas. You can have a black, a green,
As long as they're good
and a
prepared,
chamomile for all I care.
prepared well with water.
And they want to make it well, and they care about how you enjoy the experience. I think that's the key.
Okay. Tea is about service and humility and gracefulness and all those lovely things. Well, we're going to conclude. It's been a wonderful time talking to the Devotee. I said it right that time. And you can find him on Twitter. What's your website?
Our website is the-devotee, which is DEVOTEA.com.
Okay, so he said it completely different. He said Devotee.
There's all sorts of
The
accents
accent?
around the world. We hear it every single way, but then there's a lot of different ways of saying tea as well.
And then you have a new book that you're also. What's the name of the book?
We
You
do
have it
indeed,
here?
and
Let's
I
see a picture. Let's see a picture of that
coincidentally have it
beautiful
here,
book. Sorry.
and didn't think to
Of course
get
he
it out
has it here.
beforehand.
That's
This
okay.
one he
Well, I
prepared
remember. And he's been showing that book around. He did a blending class in Harlem last week, and I'm sure that went well. That
So-
was a lot of fun.
This is The Enthusiast, Diatribes of the Devotee, and it's kind of based on the concept of my blog,
Yeah.
which is to just put a few facts with some stuff I've made up and have a go at something. But there's some interesting history. It's not about the technicalities of tea. It's about the people that are involved and the stories and the moments and stray thoughts and what tea means to different people. So it's just a collection of short essays really, and hopefully put together with a bit of fun and a bit of
I love the cover.
information. Yeah, we Anne does all our styling, and this was just it's just an absolutely gorgeous shot with the just the angle and everything
The little donkey.
coincided.
Yes.
The other thing I have here
Yes.
is for you, and this is our Aussie ginger chai. Now that's not available in America, but it's an Australian tea. So it's made with Australian tea and then a collection of spices. It's actually our most popular tea in Australia.
Oh, awesome.
You might
I'm
like
so
some of that to try.
excited. Australian grown tea. Oh, love it. I can't wait. Isn't that cute? I love the little ducky. Taking a bath with some tea. Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a
great.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.